and welcome to Iron Missions.
Here it is our mission to inspire, restore, overcome, and nurture. And this is going to be our second time trying to record this, but we have a new microphone.
So we just wanted to talk to you guys about fighting fair. We've been doing a study on James chapter 3. In James chapter 3, the first part of it is all about the power of our words. And I would just like to add a nice little disclaimer here, because we are not a perfect couple coming to you telling you how you can be all like us. We are people who used to fight like cats and dogs. We're opposite personalities. So the idea that we're going to go through life even a day agreeing on everything, like, it's not going to happen. And so we've had to learn how to protect our relationship in a way that allows us to fight fair, so we don't keep walking away from incidences and arguments just wounded, because sometimes we would get to an argument that would last for 5 minutes, and the hurt and frustration after what was said in that moment can last for 5 months. And so here are some tools in this video that we learned to help us to fight fair, courtesy of James chapter 3.
Yeah, and just for another disclaimer here, thank you guys for watching our video last week. I know it was not normal. This video was actually supposed to be recorded last week, but our mic broke. So we didn't know that till after the video was recorded. So thank you guys for being here with us today. We're going to go into James chapter 3.
What did you just... Okay.
3, this many. Verse 2. We all stumble in many ways. Anyone who is never at fault in what they say is perfect, able to keep their whole body in check. So what that scripture is talking about, and I know we said we're going to talk about taming the tongue. This is actually the second verse in the 3rd chapter, and it goes down into talking about taming the tongue. And Sherelle's, the tongue, not tongue. Sherelle's going to go talk about that more here in a second. But what that's really talking about, it says we all stumble, okay? We all stumble, meaning that we all make mistakes. Matter of fact, in the beginning of James, it says, when you face troubles, we're all going to face troubles because we're all imperfect. We're all human. We're all going to have mistakes. We're all going to have faults. We're all going to have failures. It's a part of our human nature. So when he says we all stumble, but he who is able, or she, who is able to never be at fault in what they say is perfect, able to control the whole body. Now, that struck us as we're reading this, and like right between the eyes. And I've read James. There was one year I read James every month. Like, it has been in my life for a long time. But it hit me for the first time today as we're reading it. We're all at fault. But if I can be in control of my tongue because of her faults, not just mine, but because of her faults. Because why would I go and talk to her or complain to her or address her about something that's frustrating me if it's not something that she's doing, that it's not meeting my standard? When we see other people's mistakes, other people's faults, other people's dirty, whatever it may be, we always have a tendency to want to throw in our 2 cents. Well, if they would just get their life under control, maybe they wouldn't be having so much problems. Well, maybe if they would do X, Y, Z, maybe if they would do this, that, or the other. You come home and maybe there's dishes in the sink and there's clothes lying around. Well, if you would just, manage your time better, maybe we could get this under control. That's not going to help anybody in that situation, because I'm just releasing frustration. I'm letting my tongue go without controlling it. So Sherelle and I came up with, she came up with this saying that she has for whenever we're going to want to address something that maybe is bothering us. Maybe we're noticing something that is maybe bothering the other person. We need to address something that maybe needs to be a little bit adjusted or fixed or corrected. Sherelle came up with this really cool saying.
So it goes on to say in the chapter that you can steer a horse with a small bridle. It's the bit that you put into their mouth. You can steer an entire ship with a small rudder. And so what we say matters. We've heard in the old school rhyme, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never hurt me. Well, we all know that's a lie. Really, it's more like sticks and stones can break your bones, and words can devastate you.
Scar you for life.
So what's really important is that you choose your words wisely. So that brings us to our first phase when trying to approach someone, when trying to have confrontation, but wanting to make sure you're doing it in a biblical way, is you want to have tact.
Now, what tact is addressing a situation in a very careful and precise way. For example, when a doctor is going to perform a surgery and he needs to make an incision, what does he grab? Does he grab the chainsaw? No. He grabs the scalpel. Why? Because he needs to make a very precise cut so that it's easier for it to heal. It's not going to feel good. That's why they put most people out for these things. It's not going to feel good. It's going to get the job done. It's going to allow for whatever needs to be fixed. But first, you have to pierce the skin. And if you're not careful, you're going to take a 3-bladed knife, which is illegal in most places, because if you have a 3-bladed knife and you twist, then the hole cannot close and you cannot suture that thing. Medical field. You have to use precise cuts so it's easier to close back up. And it's using your words tactfully is the exact same way. It's not going and saying, "Hey, you stupido, what's wrong with you, eh?"
Not Luca. We're not saying don't be honest.
No.
We're saying be intentional with how you want to deliver that honesty.
Yeah.
So if you look at wrapping paper, it's $1 billion industry, right? Like you can buy wrapping paper, especially during the holiday season. You can find birthday wrapping paper at any time of the year. And the entire purpose of wrapping paper is to shred it up and throw it into the trash. But we spend our money on it anyway with the hopes that we can present the gift that we got someone in the best possible way. Well, your words are worth more than anything you can wrap in wrapping paper. So be intentional in how you present what you're wanting to say. We're not saying dilute the truth. We're saying be intentional in how you deliver the truth.
If you truly care about the person, even when you're upset, the goal at the end of the day is for you two to be in good standing. You can't do that if you're taking chainsaw to every conversation.
Okay, so the next one is timing. So when it comes to timing, you want to be careful and intentional about when you choose to talk to someone about something.
Yeah.
So if there's something that's been plaguing your relationship, why are you...
Because I can't wait for my part to talk.
Okay, you're gonna tell me about the 2 o'clock in the morning thing.
2 o'clock in the morning is not the perfect time to talk about an issue. I'm just gonna put that out there. Sometimes it might be, but it's not always the best time. Lights go on, she's crying, and I'm like, that's not the best time.
So, right, we put that disclaimer at the beginning that we're not a perfect couple who did everything right.
No, we learned the hard way.
We learned the hard way on a lot of things. But basically, he's not wrong. I was really bad at timing. I'm an emotional person. I wear my heart right on my sleeve, and I'm the kind of person that I can work my way through a conversation with or without you. I can say all of your parts. I know what you're going to say. I know how I'm going to rebuttal. And when I get full on a subject, no, we're talking about it right now. Have you just worked a 12-hour shift, just got home and haven't even put your things down? Yes. Am I going to start arguing right now in this moment? Probably. And that was just something that I did.
Came home, not even like opened the door all the way, and we were mid-argument. I didn't even know. I had no idea.
It was just something I really struggled with, because sometimes I would carry something on my heart and it would just seem so heavy that, to me, the sooner we can get this over with, the better it's going to be. But here's the problem. Hangry is like a real thing. Sleeplessness, frustration. Now there are some things that sometimes you can't just say no time is a good time. You have to find a time to talk about your frustrations, talk about your situations. But the idea is find that time. Don't just pick a time. So a couple ways you can do that that we learned in counseling is just ask. Say, hey, I've got something that's kind of just been frustrating me, something that's on my mind. I don't want to just talk about it right now. I know we're busy. Can you tell me a time that would be good to go over that? And it's important.
Tuesday, the 14th of September, 2097.
Yeah. So
our schedule should be clear.
Yeah, so you can't do that. The idea is that as partners, you can't just say, well, I'm never going to talk about it. Good luck. Because it's not going to be healthy at all.
Healthy. Everything that happens in between that point when you don't talk about something. Some things are not for you to talk about, okay? When I say that, not for you to bring up. But you need to talk about things. Whether with your spouse or with somebody else, because you got to get it out there. If not, it's like a cork on top of a bottle, and you're just shaking it every day, shaking it harder and harder and harder, and eventually that cork's going to pop.
Yeah, so you got to talk about things. But pick a timing that's going to be good. Pray about it. Say, hey, this is going to be a good time to talk about it. And a lot of the times, if you address it at a better time, not just at random, not just right before you're about to go to bed, not right before you get off of work, but find a time that works for you guys, then what you're needing to say has a better chance of being received. Mercy is something that I really like to focus on, because I feel like out of the 3 components to have in confrontation, it's going to give you the best chance of success.
Yeah.
Basically, mercy is, let me genuinely put myself in the other person's shoes.
And I'm going to stop. I'm going to humble brag on my wife. She excels in that more than anybody I've ever met in my entire life. I am like a bull in a china shop. You know how I learned the scalpel method? From her. I was a chainsaw everyday person. If not, let's just take a 747 Boeing and crash it into the conversation and open up everything. That was me. I was bold. I was blunt. It may have been true, but it was never in a pretty package. But she just excels in mercy way beyond anything that anybody I ever met in my life. So when she's saying that, mercy is an important component, it's her natural instinct to be merciful. But one of the things that she does very well that I'm not good at all is understanding people's emotions. I'm a fact guy. You come to me with a problem, we're going to have a solution for that problem. We're going to fix that problem, and we're going to make that problem no more non-existent, okay? You're going to come out on top of that problem way better than you ever were before that problem, okay? But if you want me to, express a feeling or cry with you, I'm going to be like, yo, I don't know what to do with this. That's where she excels.
And I think it's important. I mean, honestly, in confrontation, mercy is, I feel like, the top thing that we can see in the Bible when it comes to confronting other people. The Bible is very clear to say, hey, no one's perfect. You all have your stuff. There's a scripture, it's like, hey, why are you focusing on the splinter in the other person's eye and you've got a plank in your eye?
Or a log.
A log. James chapter 2, before it talks about the tongue, it says, hey, nobody's perfect. And so a couple of things to help you walk in mercy if it's not your natural disposition. Or here are a couple of questions you can ask yourself. Number 1, honestly, if I was handed every situation that person was handed, would I honestly be responding better? And by handed, I mean, was I given the same childhood? Was I given the same experiences? Was I given the same disposition? Was I given the same tools, constructive and social tools to deal with these things in life? And if you can mark one of those things as, yes, technically, I had a slightly better childhood, or I just have a naturally strong disposition. If you have a tool in your belt that allows you to handle maybe that situation in a better way, then you have to take a step back and say, what would it be like not to have that?
Yeah.
What would it be like to struggle in this area? And if you cannot think of what it would be like to struggle in that area, meditate on what it's like to struggle in your own area. Think about that, because maybe you are really strong. We're opposites, and so I'm naturally working through it, but I default to fear a lot of the times. So if I have to make a weird phone call, like I just need to call to ask a question, I can think of all the ways that phone call can go wrong and then just talk myself out of it. Andrew, on the other hand, he's just like, just pick up the phone. Just call them. It'll be over so quickly. So,
do you sell pepperoni pizza? You do. That's all I need to know. Thank you so much.
Yeah. I do. So naturally, he's just a really brave person. So struggling with fear is not something he can really wrap his mind around. So if you have a situation like, I honestly don't know what it's like to struggle with that, then say, here's something I do struggle with. And how do I want people to handle me in my area of weakness? And then you just do to others as you want them to do to you.
The golden rule.
If it's one of the situations where you're like, I really need to know where you're coming from so that I can walk in mercy with you, ask them. Not in an accusatory way. Have tact about it, right? Find a good time and say, hey, you do this and it frustrates me. But here's what I want to know. Why do you do that? I sincerely want to know, why do you say it that way? I honestly want to know, why do you feel that way? And don't come at them with a pre-packaged list of rebuttals. Come at them with an open heart. Come at them ready to learn about their perspective, ready to learn about what they say, and then sit on that for a minute, maybe 5 minutes, maybe a minute, maybe a week, and then decide how you want to approach that confrontation, if even necessary. Like he said, sometimes household work, dividing responsibilities was a sore spot for us. But once he learned that I do have, for whatever reason, some anxiety when it comes to home management, now he knows, okay, the only way this is not happening, only way this is not getting done is because she's having a bad day. Yeah. Because he took the time to say, let me put myself in her shoes. Let me figure out what's actually going on in her headspace that's triggering this thing that's frustrating me. And that, I feel like, is the most important component, because that's what Jesus does with us. The Bible says he is easily touched with our afflictions because he's walked in the flesh. He knows how hard it is, and he factors that in to how he deals with us. So how dare we not factor that in to how we deal with each other? I don't mean to be harsh.
It took some uncomfortable conversations for me to learn that I don't need to ask her, what do you need me to do? It took uncomfortable conversations for me to learn what to do.
Yeah.
So if I notice, like, hey, this isn't done in the house, this is not normal, I'm not going to ask her anymore, because I've already asked those. We've already had those tact, timing, and mercy conversations. Now I'm just like, I'm going to go ahead and do that. She's in this place over here for whatever reason this didn't get done. I'm just going to go ahead and knock it out.
Yeah.
If she's having a bad day, it makes her feel better. If she's having a good day, it makes her feel better. At the end of the day, it makes her feel better. So we don't always have to have these conversations. Well, we've had this conversation 97 times, and every single time you don't do this. No, we don't need to have those conversations every time. Once you have 1 or 2 conversations, you realize, okay, this happened to them back at this time in their life, which caused them to think this about themselves, which caused them to do this whenever they feel like this, and I don't want them to do that because I love that person. I'm going to go ahead and take care of this.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, she's going to feel better for it.
So I have a question.
What?
What do you do if your partner, your spouse, the other person in the relationship, the friendship, whatever, is not a Christian and has no interest in engaging in confrontation in a healthy way? And like, I'll just throw this out there, like, what if you're married to them and they're just like, I'm not doing it. If I want to yell at you, I'll yell, and you'll just have to deal with it.
Make that face that I just made for the past awkward few minutes.
You'll make it?
No. Honestly, it's never easy. It's really not. It's not easy when you're both saved. It's not easy to have these conversations. My number one thing I would say is always pray. Always pray. Before any confrontational conversation, any conversation that requires tact, timing, and mercy, always pray. The second thing I would say is, if you're struggling with saying it in an appropriate way, find someone who is balanced in your life that you could bounce it off of. You know, I have people in my life that I can go to, like, hey, let me run this by you real quick. She has people in her life, it's like, hey, let me run this by you real quick. And then we bounce those off and say, you know what, I can probably say that better. Or our partner or friend would say, hey, you know what, you sounded like a jerk. And so we know how to adjust things. Attempt to have those conversations. And if the individual is not wanting to have any conversation whatsoever, at the end of the day, you have to give that to God.
Yeah.
You cannot force anybody to do anything here on this earth.
Yeah, I would just like to say, I know we've said a lot of disclaimers, but it's very important to say that you don't do these things to control another person's behavior.
No, not manipulation.
You don't do these things to manipulate someone else. The reason that we choose to do things God's way isn't to control someone else. It's because walking in obedience with God on any area of our lives invites God to be a part of that area of our lives. So even if the other person is doing the wrong thing, you can choose to walk in step with the Word of God, and it's like washing your hands clean. So one, God can deal with that person. And the other thing I tell people all the time is go get help. You can go get wise counseling. We have a married couple that we go to once every so many months, and we also go to a licensed professional counselor. But we have a wise counsel couple who sincerely walks with us. They've managed to stay married through raising kids and then having relationships with their adult kids, and now they've got grandchildren, and they're kind of like almost retired but like still working in the church, and they've been through every phase of life ahead of us, and they still love each other. So we go to those people and we say, hey, this is what we're dealing with, because odds are they've seen it before. So find wise counsel. And if the person in your life, especially if you're married, they won't go to counseling, then you go get help. You find someone you can talk to. You go to counseling, because the best way to deal with unhealthy situation is to be the healthiest version of yourself. So don't wait until you can do it as an us. Do it as an I. And move forward in that, and then the more clarity you have in your life, the better it is, like, to deal with these types of situations and to know how to do it and to handle it well.
Yeah, so bottom line is, at the end of the day, it's going to be your choice to use tact, timing, and mercy. It's going to be their choice to respond in a way that is going to be receptive. We're not saying this is going to be a foolproof system. You can use tact, timing, and mercy every single time, and the person won't blow up every single time, or be aggressive every single time, or defensive every single time. We're going into this assuming both parties are loving each other with their whole heart and wanting things to work out, and are willing to make the necessary sacrifices required to make a successful relationship. And that's on all situations and all parents and children, children and children, siblings, relationships, brothers and sisters, and husbands and wives, whatever it may be. Not used for manipulation, but used to grow together and be a stronger couple, family, unit, whatever you want to say. That's what we're wanting to get across. We are not perfect whatsoever. We do not have all the answers at all. But this has helped us a lot. We've come a very long way in a very short time, and this is not anything because of us, but it's because of who we've allowed to speak into us.
Yes.
We went to the wise counsel. We've actually applied it because we do want to have a marriage that lasts. We want to be in a relationship that lasts for all time. We want people to look at us when we're both 90 and like, oh, they're so cute. They've been married for 75 years. Couple. We're gonna be the old couple. She's black. She don't crack, but I'm gonna be all wrinkly, and she's gonna be like looking
like 45.
She's gonna look like 45 when she's like 90, and I'm gonna be over there looking like, a prune. So we want to be that couple. And we want you guys to have healthy relationships as well, with your family, with your spouse, with your friends. We want these healthy relationships, because remember, the core of who we are here at Iron Missions is Proverbs 27:17, as iron sharpens iron, so does one person sharpen another. We're wanting to grow, we're wanting to build off of each other, and we're wanting everyone that's a part of the Iron Missions family to be as successful as they can be.
We want to do this together.
So we love you. Thanks for listening to our long rant. And we will see you guys next week.